Mrs. Verma, Shri Ashok Verma, distinguished dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I am extremely grateful to both Mrs. Verma and Ashok ji, whom I have had the privilege of knowing for a very long time, of putting together today's evening and providing me an opportunity to interact with a large number of friends here, most of whom I've met earlier, but may not, at least on this short visit, have had the opportunity to have a structured interaction with them. Well, today is a curious coincidence. As was being mentioned just now, this is the 100th anniversary of the Indian participation in the First World War. Well, the Indian participation in the First World War was the largest that any country had. Almost 1.2 million Indian soldiers fought the First World War. And we probably had the largest number of casualties in the First World War. I, as an Indian, didn't know this. Till a few months ago, when on the 100th anniversary of the First World War, Britain decided a great act of civility, which was that the Defence Secretary himself flew down to India to meet the families of the 6 Victoria Cross winners of the First World War. Of course, their descendants must have been there. Those gentlemen were awarded posthumously. And both he and I were present at a function at the British High Commission, where representatives of those families also came. And memorials were built by the British government in their memory and installed in each one of those 6 villages. Now, this was an extraordinary gesture which came from the British government to send the Defence Secretary all the way to make sure that the British High Commission reaches the villages of those who were martyred in the First World War and reached their villages 100 years after the incident is taking place. Yesterday, the 12th of March, curiously, is the 80th anniversary of Gandhiji's Dandi March. He started this in 1930 on the 12th of March. At a time when he started this, and I am saying this in contradisting to my earlier point, there were many who mocked at the man. In fact, one of the newspapers in India at that time, a popular newspaper at that time, which was edited by a British editor, the Statesman, used to mock the Dandi March, the Salt Satyagraha. On the front page of the newspaper, it used to be reported in one corner of the paper, and that corner was titled the Cranks Corner. And the tenor of the song in the Cranks Corner was that this man thinks that by just lifting salt from some place, he's going to be able to get rid of the military might of the most powerful nation at that time. But Gandhiji had his agenda cut out very straight. The very act of lifting the salt sent an electrifying message to the whole country that how easy it is to defy a powerful establishment if the moral strength of that powerful establishment and continuing to govern you gets lost. Gandhiji was never able to really push the British out. He created a moral environment in India that in 1947, it almost became imperative for the British to leave on their own. A question which has been asked, would these Gandhian methods have succeeded against any other country? They did succeed against the British. And this is really reflective of the strength of the two different institutions. One is an institution called Gandhi, who was able to take the easier course or a more difficult course and discard the easier course of violence. In protest, violence and force could be an easier force. He discarded that and chose the alternative method. It took him a very long time, but he succeeded on that method. The greatness of Gandhi was also evident from the fact that he fought the British, but had no bitterness against the British. And it's a great tribute to the British sense of civility, which I referred in the context of the First World War, that the British now choose to honor what conventionally was regarded as their adversary. In fact, the best criticism Gandhiji used to make of some of the British practices when India was ruled by them, by saying that this conduct is very un-British, thereby highlighting the fact that he had great faith in the sense of fairness and civility as far as Britain was concerned. And it's a great tribute to both British liberalism and British democracy that they have now chosen Gandhi to share what is the most prominent public space in this city and in this country, and giving the honor which has rarely been given to anybody outside Britain except for Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela also is a man who was a self-proclaimed follower of Gandhi. Tomorrow, therefore, is a great occasion, and Mrs. Verma, you've chosen the right day for it, when two adversaries, two contrarian viewpoints converge into appreciating each other much after the event in history. And we inherited a lot from the British. I have always wondered whether two countries, one which was ruled and almost considered itself to be oppressed by the other, from the very first day of its independence could afford to have that level of cordiality with the ruler. Normally they would have parted very bitterly. But this parting was almost like a divorce by mutual consent. And it was a parting which from day one had a lot in common. Our whole idea of parliamentary democracy, our whole idea of a free and fair election system, our whole idea of a very powerful independent judicial system, a very robust and a free media, these are all ideas which in our governance system we actually borrowed from the British. And it is these institutions which have served Indian democracy very well. And I think it is this that forms the basis of this partnership. This has been furthered by a very strong 1.5 million British Indian community which has come into this land, adopted it as its own, and probably will go down as one of the most extrovertish communities anywhere in the world. It's become a very powerful and a very dominant force in this country. And I'm sure you have the proud privilege of being both British and being both Indian. You can also switch over your roles depending on what the situation at that time demands. I've been saying since morning that you can now start cheering the Indian cricket team because the alternative option has been lost to you. Having said this, I think it's a great occasion. The Indians in Britain form one large community which, as I said, is very extrovertish, has a lot of concern for India. Most of the people here are very familiar faces who keep interacting with us when we are here or they are in India. And I'm sure by getting them together and honoring some of them, it's a great service that you are doing in putting the whole system of this community together. My best wishes to you, and I'm extremely, once again, very grateful to Mrs. Verma and Ashokji for having put this evening together. Thank you.